Welcome back to the new adventures of the monad. We continue our story of the establishment of the fifth root race after the second destruction of Atlantis, which happened just over 70,000 years ago. Atlantis had not finished its evolution and in many respects persists to this day. But the wheels of karma grind slowly, and what started as a segregation that led to the formation of the fifth subrace, the ancient Semites, then went on several 100,000 years later to act as an incubator for the next root race. We saw in the previous presentation that the Vaivasvata Manu led a group of individuals who we have mentioned many times before as the 700 and 1,200 year group on account of how frequently they tend to incarnate. Out of the Atlantean heartland, across the tip of Africa, into Arabia, and from there to the Gobi Desert. At this time, the Manu sent the adept we know today as Moya to incarnate in one of the best Toltec families in Posidonis and recalled him when he was 25 years old. This is a good representation of how monads incarnate, either to be at the right place or to be exposed to the right environment, and in this case, to have the correct genes to bring about a grander plan. Moya then married the daughter of the Manu, thus bringing in an additional strain of Toltec blood, which was needed for the fledgling root race. From this date, approximately 60,000 years ago, the Aryan Root Race may be said to have begun. A successful foundation had been laid, and after this the rootstock was never again destroyed. The descendants of the Manu remained on the White Island until they numbered 100. They then went over to the mainland and began to build the city which the Manu had planned as the future capital of his race. At the inception of a root race, the leading monads such as the Manu, the Bodhisattva and the Mahachohan tend to be much more directly involved in the day-to-day affairs. Here we can probably exclude the Mahachohan, as this monad is more concerned with the arc of cultural development, and this usually occurs after the establishment of the root or subrace. The Mahachohan is also more likely to work through adepts, subsidiary to the third ray, those being the fourth, the fifth, sixth and seventh rays, to nudge humanity to an ever greater understanding of the world around them. The newly established city fanned out around the edge of the shore opposite the island, sloping up to the hills 20 miles in the distance. The very wide streets all pointed towards the White Island. The whole city was planned carefully 1,000 years in advance of the people who were to eventually live in it. From the hills they obtained metals and stones of various colors: white, gray, red and green, as well as porphyry, a type of granite, of a splendid purple. The builders worked gladly, as a brotherhood, knowing that they were carrying out the wishes of him who was once their father and their king. If you consider the degree to which we have individualized today, such a relationship between the root or the subrace Manu would be inconceivable. Students of esoterics today are replete with those who believe, according to Alice Bailey, that the hierarchy is going to begin to externalize. At a big conference that occurs twice each century, the hierarchy meets to plan the goals of that century and reviews them 50 years later. The first of these conferences is due to happen in 2025. The optimistic amongst us assume the next day plane loads of glowing adepts are going to start to arrive and all our problems will be over. Dream on. Yes, I feel that a number of 46 selves will take incarnation and begin to insert themselves into our institutions. Will we know about this? I most certainly hope not, because if we do know, so do the Lords of the Dark Face, and then they will actively endeavor to thwart their mission. Another question we have to ask ourselves is, how would we know they were who they are? If they tattoo it across their forehead, they are relieving us of our free choice, while at the same time stirring up animosities that could well get them cancelled, metaphorically and quite literally. Another warning to all those doe-eyed New Agers who are expecting miracles to unfold just around the corner. When change is brought about, Sanat Kumara has the first word, and that word is the first ray. And you know what that means. Think Shiva and what he is famous for. Be careful what you wish for, because you may just get it, but not in the way you were expecting it to manifest. Back to our nascent city. They use stones larger even than those at Karnak, sliding them on rollers with the aid of machinery, some of the stones being 160 feet long. The Manu and his lieutenants lightened the stones by occult powers, in brackets levitation, so that they could be lifted into their places. The buildings were on the Egyptian scale, but much lighter in appearance. This was especially so on the White Island, where the domes bulged at the base and went up to a point, like a closed lotus bud, in which the folded-in leaves had been given a kind of twist, as though two helices, right and left-handed, had been superimposed so that the lines crossed each other. The lower part of the huge buildings were immensely solid. There was a crownwork of minarets and arches with a very graceful curve, topped by a fairy-like lotus bud dome on top. The building work occupied many hundreds of years, the White Island, when completed, being a marvel of beauty, nothing to rival the city of the Golden Gates, but a good effort nonetheless. The island sloped up to a point on which were built stupendous temples, all of white marble inlaid with gold. These covered the whole island, making it a single sacred city with a huge central temple. The dome was over the great hall, wherein the 4 Kumaras appeared on special occasions. Who are the 4 Kumaras, I hear you ask? They are also known as the Buddhas of activity, 6 of whom sit before the throne of the Lord of the planet, Sanat Kumara. The streets were arranged as 4 radii meeting at the central temple. The view from the end of one of the city streets, say 10 miles away, was very beautiful and impressive to observe. Seen from the northwest, the whole city looked like a great eye of Masonic symbolism, foreshortened so that the curves became cylindrical, the darker lines of the city on the mainland forming the iris. Inside and outside the temple were adorned with many carvings, a large number containing what appeared to be Masonic symbols. There was one series of carvings illustrating the physical and chemical atoms. Other atoms and particles, such as those of vitality, were modeled in alto relievo, or high relief. For 1,000 years, this capital was under construction for the people destined to become the imperial heart of a larger kingdom. Gold was used extensively, especially on white marble. Jewels were also used in the decoration, as well as slabs of chalcedony, a quartz-like stone, one variant resembling Mexican onyx. A favorite motif device was a combination of green jade and purple porphyry. Paintings were not used, nor drawings on flat surfaces, nor perspective either. Friezes were, as already mentioned, in alto relievo and exceedingly well done, the figures often being painted. We see this in profusion in Assyrian decorations and later in Greece. A massive and splendid bridge connected the White Island with the mainland, the city being known as the City of the Bridge. It was a cantilever construction, very graceful and decorated with great groups of statuary. The stones of the causeway were 100 feet in length and wide in proportion. This propensity to festoon bridges with statues can still be seen today in Rome. About 45,000 BCE, the city was at its zenith, the capital of an immense empire which included all of East and Central Asia, from Tibet to the coast and from Manchuria to Thailand, besides claiming suzerainty over all the islands from Japan to Australia. The ineffable stamp of Aryan blood can still be seen in traces of races such as the Ainu of Japan. The Cyclopean buildings were finished with great delicacy and polished to a high degree. Such was the mighty city planned by Vaivasvata Manu and built by his children. Many and great were the cities of Asia, but the city of the bridge outshone them all, and over it ever brooded the mighty presences who had and still have their earthly dwelling place on the sacred White Island, giving to this one out of all the cities of the earth the ever-abiding benediction of their immediate proximity. Now, if you waltz off to the Gobi Desert, you are not going to find a gleaming edifice. So I presume the authors here are referring to an etheric abode similar to Shambhala, if not Shambhala itself. So where are these cities today? The first thing I would say is that if you travel the Silk Road, there are whole civilizations that have developed, thrived, and crumbled into dust. And this was all in the last 2,000 years. What are the chances of finding cities having their foundations established tens of thousands of years ago, still being around today? I do, however, wonder if some of the magnificent structures we see today, such as Angkor Wat and the surrounding irrigation systems, were not rehabilitations rather than greenfield constructions. As I have mentioned before, we often see structures where the base of the building is cyclopean and does not follow the pattern of the building material above it. On that note, let's leave it there and continue next time to look at the establishment of the first subrace of the Aryan Root Race. This subrace is called Hindu. Thank you.